What happens when America pressures its closest Asian ally to abandon a homegrown fighter jet, and Japan builds something better anyway? The Mitsubishi F-2 looks like an F-16 on steroids. But this is not just another license-built American fighter with a Japanese badge. This is the story of how political arm twisting in the 1980s backfired spectacularly, how Japan weaponized compromise, and why the F-2 became the first fighter in history equipped with active, electronically scanned array radar. Let us rewind to 1981. Japan's Air Self-Defense Force faced a critical problem. Their aging Mitsubishi F-1 fighters, designed for coastal defense, were approaching retirement. Japan sits at one of the most strategically volatile crossroads on Earth, surrounded by Russia, North Korea, and an increasingly assertive China. With thousands of miles of coastline and disputed islands like the Senkakus, Japan needed a fighter optimized for maritime strike missions. Not just air superiority, the initial plan was straightforward. Build a completely indigenous fighter called the FSX, or Fighter Support Experimental. Japan had successfully produced F-15Js under license and wanted to take the next step, designing their own advanced fighter from scratch. This was not just about defense, it was about technological independence and preserving Japan's aerospace industry. But then Washington stepped in. Hard. The Reagan and Bush administrations saw Japan's plan as a threat to American defense exports and a potential challenge to U.S. technological superiority. Congress worried that Japan would develop cutting-edge technology without sharing it. American defense contractors wanted their cut of what would become a multi-billion-dollar program. In 1987, after intense negotiations, some would say coercion, Japan agreed to a co-development program based on the General Dynamics F-16. The deal guaranteed American contractors at least 40% of production work, with Japan footing 60% of development costs. Japan was forced to limit its access to critical flight control software, while the U.S. gained rights to any new technology Japan developed. It looked like a complete American victory. But here is what Washington did not anticipate. Japan took the F-16 airframe and fundamentally reimagined it. The F-2 shares roughly 60% commonality with the F-16C Block 40, but that 40% difference represents a quantum leap in capability. Let us break down exactly what Japan engineered. The F-2's wing is 25% larger than the F-16's wing area. But size is not the innovation, the material is. Japan elected to fabricate the entire wing substructure using graphite epoxy composite materials with state-of-the-art co-cured composite technology. This was not just lighter, it was revolutionary. The composite construction reduced radar cross-section while increasing fuel capacity and adding 2 additional weapon stations beyond what the F-16 carries. Why does this matter for maritime operations? Consider this. Anti-ship missiles are heavy. Japan's ASM-3, supersonic anti-ship missile, weighs over 500 kilograms. The F-2's enlarged wing and optimized hardpoints allow it to carry 4 of these weapons while maintaining combat maneuverability, something the standard F-16 simply cannot do. The F-2's fuselage is approximately 17 inches longer than the F-16, with enlarged horizontal tails. This was not aesthetic, it was aerodynamic necessity. The modifications improved stability at low altitudes over water, critical for anti-ship attack profiles. The additional fuselage volume provided space for more internal fuel, extending combat radius for operations over Japan's vast maritime territories. Here is where Japan did not just modify, they revolutionized. The Mitsubishi Electric J/APG-1 active electronically scanned array radar entered service on the F-2 in 2000, making it the first production fighter in history equipped with AESA technology. Let me emphasize this, while American F-16s were still flying with mechanically scanned AN/APG-68 radars, Japan had leapfrogged an entire generation of sensor technology AESA radars do not have moving parts. Instead of a single rotating antenna, they use thousands of transmit-forward/receive modules operating independently. The advantages are staggering: simultaneous tracking of multiple targets, resistance to jamming, low probability of intercept operation, and the ability to function as an electronic warfare system. For maritime strike missions, this meant the F-2 could detect surface vessels at extreme range while remaining electronically invisible. The J-APG-1 gave Japan capabilities that would not appear in American F-16s for another decade. Even the F-22 Raptor did not enter service with AESA until 2005. Japan had beaten America at its own technology game. Both the F-16 and F-2 use the General Electric F-110 GE-129 turbofan engine, but here's the nuance. The F-2's engine received specific tuning optimizations for low altitude, high-speed performance over water. While the modifications were subtle, they reflected Japan's laser focus on maritime strike as the primary mission. Japan integrated an indigenous electronic countermeasures suite, significantly more advanced than standard F-16 systems. The ECM package was specifically tailored for the threat environment Japan anticipated: Soviet and later Chinese and North Korean radar-guided missiles and naval air defenses. The weapons integration tells the story. While the F-2 can carry NATO standard munitions, it is optimized for Japanese weapons. The AAM-4B long-range air-to-air missile and the ASM-3 supersonic anti-ship missile. The ASM-3 is particularly significant, a Mach 3+ missile with a range exceeding 200 kilometers, designed to penetrate modern ship defenses. But here is the question nobody in Washington asked in 1987. What would all this actually cost? The F-2 program became one of the most expensive fighter developments in history, and a cautionary tale about forced collaboration. Between 1988 and 1995, Japan spent $3.27 billion just on development before a single operational aircraft flew. By the time production ramped up, unit costs had exploded. The fiscal year 1996 batch of 11 aircraft cost $1.08 billion. That is $98.3 million per aircraft. By 1997, 8 aircraft cost $99.7 million each. Later estimates pushed unit costs to $108 to $129 million per aircraft, depending on production rates. For context, that is approaching F-22 Raptor territory. The F-16C Block 50/52, by comparison, cost roughly $40 to $50 million per unit during the same period. Japan was paying double to triple the price for what critics dismissed as just a modified F-16. Why is it so expensive? Multiple factors compounded. First, the development process itself was fractured. Despite calling it co-development, neither side truly collaborated. The United States treated it as foreign military sales support for an F-16 variant they had zero procurement interest in. Japan viewed it as an indigenous program, sabotaged by American political pressure. This fundamental disagreement created inefficiencies at every stage. Second, production rates never reached an efficient scale. The original plan called for 130+ aircraft. Japan ultimately built just 98 total airframes, 76 by 2008, with production ending around 2011. Low production rates meant fixed development costs were spread across fewer aircraft, driving up unit prices catastrophically. Third, Japan insisted on indigenous technology development despite the costs. The AESA radar alone represented a massive R&D investment. Mitsubishi Electric essentially built Japan's entire AESA industry from scratch for this program. If you are finding this analysis valuable, drop a comment below and make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss our breakdown of Japan's next-generation F-3 fighter. The F-2 program left deep scars on the U.S. Japan defense relations. Japanese defense officials harbor bitter memories of American pressure that continue to cast a shadow on all discussions of U.S.-Japan cooperative defense activity. The perception in Tokyo was clear. America had forced Japan to abandon an indigenous design, extracted 40% of the work, but still denied access to critical technologies like flight control software. This was not a partnership, it was extraction. The irony is that Japan paid astronomical costs for co-development but could not access all the technology in their own aircraft. Meanwhile, the US gained rights to any Japanese innovations, like the AESA radar technology, that would later influence American programs. Despite the costs and political dysfunction, the F-2 proved operationally successful. The aircraft entered full service in 2002 and became the backbone of Japan's maritime strike capability. It demonstrated superior range, payload, and sensor performance compared to standard F-16s in Pacific maritime environments. Then, disaster struck, literally. On March 11, 2011, the massive Tohoku earthquake triggered a tsunami that inundated Matsushima Air Base on Japan's northeast coast. 18 F-2B trainer variants were caught in the surge. After inspection, 12 aircraft were deemed beyond economical repair and simply destroyed. Japan chose to repair 13 others at enormous expense, with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Lockheed Martin completing the first overhauled aircraft in 2015. This reduced Japan's F-2 fleet from 98 to approximately 91 operational aircraft, 63 single-seat F-2As, and 28 two-seat F-2Bs. For a program that never achieved efficient production scale, losing 12 airframes to a natural disaster was devastating. But here is what makes this story relevant right now. The F-2 saga is not history, it is a preview of the technological and political battles reshaping Pacific security in 2025. The F-2 experience fundamentally altered Japan's approach to defense acquisition. Tokyo recognized that relying on American technology transfer is a strategic dead end. The U.S. has become increasingly unwilling to share sensitive technologies, particularly as allied nations develop competitive capabilities. The Trump administration's transactional Buy American approach to alliances only reinforced Japanese concerns. This drives Japan's current F-3 next-generation fighter program, where Tokyo insists on maximum indigenous development despite astronomical costs. Japanese policymakers concluded that technological autonomy, even if expensive and risky, is preferable to dependence that can be weaponized politically. Japan's AESA breakthrough on the F-2 had cascading consequences. By pioneering production of AESA radars, Japan established itself as a peer competitor in electronic warfare technology. The J/APG-1 is now being upgraded to J/APG-2 standard for compatibility with newer missiles. Mitsubishi Electric has become a global AESA powerhouse, with technology that rivals Raytheon and Northrop Grumman. For the United States, this presents both opportunity and threat. Japan can contribute advanced sensor technology to allied systems. Witness the F-2's Sniper Advanced Targeting Pod integration in 2015. But Japan also represents potential technological competition in defense exports. In 1987, Japan's primary threat was the Soviet Pacific Fleet. Today, China operates the world's largest navy and has fundamentally altered the strategic calculus in the Western Pacific. The F-2 was designed specifically for maritime strike against surface combatants, a mission now more critical than ever as Chinese naval expansion threatens freedom of navigation and Japanese territorial waters. The Philippines has expressed interest in acquiring F-2s, recognizing their optimized anti-ship capabilities amid escalating South China Sea tensions. This potential export would represent Japan's first fighter sale since World War II, a seismic shift in regional security dynamics. The F-2 debacle taught both nations hard lessons about alliance management. The U.S. learned that coercive technology sharing breeds resentment and strategic hedging. Japan learned that technological independence requires massive investment but preserves strategic autonomy. As both nations now collaborate on the F-3 program alongside the United Kingdom, the shadow of the F-2 influences every negotiation. Will the partnership be genuinely collaborative, or will history repeat? The answer will determine not just the future of Japanese air power, but the credibility of American security commitments across the Indo-Pacific. So what did we learn from Japan's most expensive fighter jet? First, strategic coercion backfires. America forced Japan into a partnership that bred decades of mistrust, while Japan still achieved technological breakthroughs that rivaled American capabilities. The F-2's AESA radar proved that imposed collaboration cannot stop determined innovation. Second, mission drives design. Japan did not build a better F-16. They built a different aircraft optimized for their unique geography and threat environment. That 25% larger wing, those composite structures, that revolutionary radar, all served one purpose: dominating the maritime battle space around Japan. Third, cost matters, but capability matters more. Yes, Japan paid $100 million plus per aircraft for a program plagued by political dysfunction, but they got an aircraft that could do things no F-16 could do, at ranges and with sensors that would not appear in American fighters for another decade. Strategic capability cannot be measured in unit costs alone. The F-2 is not just a fighter jet. It is a case study in alliance politics, technological ambition, and the high-stakes poker game of Pacific security. As tensions rise with China and Japan moves toward indigenous fighter development, the lessons of the F-2 have never been more relevant. If this analysis gave you new insights into defense procurement and Pacific strategy, smash that like button and subscribe. Next video, we are breaking down Japan's F-3 next-generation fighter and why it has America and Europe scrambling to be partners. You will not want to miss it.